Well, a very good evening and welcome to episode of 365 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club, brought to you by our TSP patron community. We couldn't make the show each week without your support, so thank you once again. Coming up this week on the pod, Saints left it late. Very late, but Cyle Larin's looping stoppage time header at the Hawthorns means the unbeaten run rolls on. 11 games now in all competitions and a point rescued from a night that for long spells looked like it was really just sort of slipping away from us. Saints spent much of the evening looking short of ideas, maybe a little short of energy as well after that high-power performance, knocking Fulham out of the FA Cup just 3 days earlier. And whilst it wasn't the Saints win, perhaps that we were looking for on a night like that, one rule applies. If you can't win, don't lose. Of course, there may be a bigger concern with some injuries as well. So Saints stay 3 points behind Wrexham with 10 games to go. The unbeaten run continues. It also feels a little bit of a missed opportunity last night as well. As always, I'm joined by our panel of experts, long-time Saints watchers who know that the difference between a good season and a great one is often points like last night. My name is Neil Crespin, and joining me this week, Steve Grant, the owner of Saints Web, Glenn Delacour, writer of the blog League One -10, and George Rees-Julian, the sports reporter at the Daily Echo. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome, of course, to all our viewers and listeners. Glenn, you mentioned, I listened back to the podcast, and you mentioned after the Fulham game, the old slightly old-fashioned expression of the Lord Mayor's show and the effect that kind of a big performance might have on us at the Hawthorns, and kind of came out to be that way, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And you could kind of tell it was going to go that way from virtually as soon as the game started. West Brom, they were kind of what we expected them to be. There was a bit of a spring in the step with the appointment of the new manager, but they had a very, very limited game plan, which was basically 4-4-2, keep the two banks of four, as tight as possible when we had the ball, have the odd counter attack, and other than that, rely on set pieces. So it was as basic as you would like. They worked really hard for the entire game, and to be honest, I don't think we did. We were second to every challenge. We didn't seem to cover the distances that they were covering. We didn't seem to have any sort of directness about our attacking play in the main. And yeah, to be honest, yeah, you covered it. We were kind of lucky to escape with a point, I think. Wasn't a great performance, but at the end of the day, it was a good point. As I say, West Brom, very limited. And it's an old cliche. You have to work hard for your to earn the right for your better players to do something, and I just didn't feel like we really did that. There was a certain lethargy about a lot of them, and there were some players who didn't have the excuse because they didn't play much against Fulham or at all, but everyone seemed to be just like affected by this sort of lethargy around the whole team. So it wasn't brilliant. I didn't feel like we were ever going to score in the second half after we conceded a goal from a needlessly given away corner. And it took a substitute, Sam Adozie, to actually stick a ball in the box, and a good header from another substitute, Cyle Larin, to nick us a point at the end. And the frustration for me comes from the fact that West Brom were so limited, so we knew what they were going to do, and we didn't deal with it particularly well. And had we scored 10 minutes earlier, I think we would have won it, because you saw what happened as soon as we did score. West Brom completely went, and there was only one team in the last 3 or 4 minutes that, suddenly we looked like the team with energy, which was ridiculous because we'd spent 92 minutes without any. So, we got a point, but the frustration is there because, when we did put balls in the box, West Brom had a makeshift defence out there, and they really struggled. Scienza put that cross in the first half that Stewart met, free header, should have scored. And then we put another cross in the second half, and Larin's up against a little guy and wins the header and scores. So, yeah, it wouldn't have taken too much to win that game. But at the end of the day, you can't win them all. And getting a point on the road is not bad. Other teams above us lost, didn't they? So we have caught up a bit, but it probably should have been better. But we've got to be happy with the point from that performance.
Yeah, from that performance, certainly not from the expectation of what was to come. There couldn't have been a bigger contrast, Steve, could there, between the opposition from Sunday playing Fulham, who was a fast-flowing, attacking team that we actually managed to sort of play well against a sort of very, as Glenn's already said, a pretty sort of solid 10 behind the ball quite often against us. And I've seen some comments, not yet in the chat, but just on social media, sort of saying almost that we're not very good against teams that just sort of block us out like that. Is any excuse there, Steve, for that performance?
I mean, there's merit in those comments, I think, and I think you look around the division. There's a lot of the teams up near the top who, if you're faced with a low block and teams sticking men behind the ball and not being particularly interested in sort of attacking you and leaving space open at the other end. I mean, you look at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough, second division, and their last 3 home games, they've drawn at home with Oxford, drawn at home with Leicester, and lost at home to Charlton. And they've all gone up there with the same game plan, and Middlesbrough haven't been able to figure it out. And they've been a better side than us this season, and they're struggling with the same thing. So it's not just a Saints problem. This is a kind of league-wide thing, and I mean, you could probably say that it's a football thing. I mean, how many times, like last season, that Man City game, we basically decided that we were going to plant our flag on the edge of our penalty area and see what Man City could do, and it turned out they couldn't do enough.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've not been on the other side of this and been the team kind of clinging on and defending. But actually, in fairness, I don't think West Brom were defending that much because we didn't put them under enough pressure. The pace that we played at wasn't anywhere near what we've been kind of used to the last 6 to 8 weeks or so. As a result, we didn't get after the fullbacks at all. Scienza, I think, had one run where he went beyond the fullback, and I mean their right back is a kid out of Crystal Palace's academy who's played, I think, 3 senior appearances. So he's very inexperienced, and we didn't put that inexperience to the test enough. It was only really once Adozi kind of got going in the last 10 minutes where all of a sudden we got them kind of turning the other way and caused a little bit of discomfort for them. But for the rest of the time, we were lethargic. It was all a little bit safe. I do kind of think there is this kind of feeling within the squad that basically we've got enough quality that if we're even in games like last night where we're not completely on it, basically as long as we keep things safe and don't do anything silly, then we're okay, and someone will come up with something eventually.
Yeah, which kind of did, right?
I mean, it kind of did, but it was. I mean, we could have easily been. West Brom could have been out of sight by the time we equalised. They had a couple of good openings towards the middle of that second half, where if they'd got the second, that would have been game over, and it'd be like, well, that was dreadful. So yeah, I think there are players there who, I mean, you could argue Shea Charles possibly almost played himself out of contention for games. He was given that he has had the weekend off. He should have been kind of fit and raring to go, given the opportunity to start in that central midfield, and he was so far off the pace. It was like, what's going on here? This is really, really strange. And we were largely bailed out by the back 5 again. All the back 4 and keeper all did pretty well. All did their jobs. Offered not enough protection from the midfield. We allowed them to run through us far too often. And second balls, West Brom were first 2 more or less every time.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating that we allowed someone as limited as them with. I mean, you got like Jed Wallace, who's been around the block for ages, but can't run, and yet you've seen him obviously do that little sort of dummy pirouette around Jack Stevens on the far side on the touchline. It's like, oh, come on, lads, just get a grip. And yeah, we never quite did get a grip.
No.
I mean, even the goal was a hopeful cross into the box. I mean, it was well directed, and I think it was a good header. There was definitely an angle that I saw that made it look like it was an own goal. That the defender actually headed it back towards his own goal under pressure from Larin, as opposed to Larin getting a sort of proper contact on it. I've not seen an angle that definitely clears it up one way or the other. So
doesn't really matter, does it? It's a point.
It doesn't.
It doesn't care.
It's one of those where you want your number 9 to be getting those goals. So I mean, he's obviously going to claim it, but if he hadn't got it, then there's that kind of psychological thing, sort of with a striker. If you're not able to kind of jump above the centre back when the ball's coming into the box, then all of a sudden you kind of lose a little bit of confidence. But I mean, it's a last minute equaliser. Theoretically, we finish the game with momentum, and there's a little bit of positivity going in to Saturday lunchtime. But I think for those 91 minutes beforehand, I think you're looking at that, and Coventry have had a pretty easy night of it against Preston. You're looking at that game on Saturday thinking, "Ooh, this is not going to be particularly fun."
Indeed. We will come on to that, of course, as our preview for the Coventry game, big game coming up at the weekend. George, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have you with us. Is there perhaps a tinge of disappointment that's greater than just that poor performance based on the back of such a great performance beating Premier League Fulham? Did we sort of go into the West Brom game thinking, as fans and supporters, that we would turn up and do another great display like that? Does that make it even worse?
Yeah, I think it does. The fact that Wrexham had lost the night before, and with a win, Saints would have gone 1 point outside the playoffs. I think that's the biggest disappointment for me, is that they missed up the chance to do that, because yes, they got to play Wrexham, and if they beat them, then they'll be on the same points as them. But they've got a game against Coventry, and had they not got that point and then went and lose to Coventry, and we'll chat about that game in a bit, suddenly it could have been a 7-point gap from potentially getting a 1 point gap. It could still be 6 if they lose to Coventry and Swansea lose against Wrexham. I think the biggest disappointment for me, though, was that on the way up, I think me and Joe Tesson, we went in the car with the BBC lads, sort of said that it does feel very Saintsy for them to put in such a good performance on the weekend against a Premier League side, against a good side, to look brilliant, and everyone goes to that West Brom game thinking, oh yeah, we should be okay, and then they bring you back down to earth. And I think that is kind of what happened, unfortunately. Like the boys were saying there, all the players there wasn't anyone who necessarily had a good game. Everyone had an off game, and you can't get away with 2 or 3 players having an off game, let alone sort of 9, 10. I think Daniel Peretz was all right in goal. He did what he had to do. And yeah, they were just so slow. They just never got out of the blocks. The game was a bit disrupted in the first half, and they just never found a way to react to what West Brom were doing. And when they play against a team like Fulham like that, you expect them to be able to turn teams like West Brom over, and they were nowhere near doing it. Even when Sam Edozie knocked the ball into the box, the 6 minutes had just gone up, and I turned to Alfie and said they could have 60 minutes and they're not going to score a goal. 3 seconds later, they did score a goal. So
what do you know, George?
To eat those words. But it did feel like one of those nights where they could have quite easily played for another 30, 40 minutes and not come close to a goal, because there was just those 2 chances. And then, as Glenn was saying beforehand, if they'd have actually been able to play 10 minutes longer than they did after they managed to pull it back, they looked good again. It took them 90 minutes to actually wake up, and you can't do that. And they can't really afford for another performance like that between now and the end of the season, because there's teams around them who are happy to catch up and to overtake them and get into that playoff spot, because it is just that one now that Hull have beaten Wrexham, I think.
Yeah, the other disappointing news, of course, after 37 minutes, Scienza was taken off injured. Strange thing happened. I think he was tackled. He went down. He got back up again, but then something obviously pinged somewhere. From the club perspective, George, anything coming out of the club yet, 24 hours on?
No, Tonda was very, very cautious. I know he said it was a groin problem, and that was about all he said. Leo get a scan, as they always do. And other players are staying in St. George's Park, at least last night. I think perhaps they might be staying up and around it rather than going all the way back with another game in the Midlands on the weekend. Mm-hmm. I think Tonda was perhaps a little bit smart to keep his cards close to his chest, because suddenly if he says it's really bad, or if he doesn't actually know, nobody wants everyone worrying about your best player being out before a game against the side sitting pretty at the top of the division. But we're not actually going to be able to find out about him before that Coventry game. We did the pre-match questions last night. I spoke to a couple of people. Leo seemed to sort of say that he felt something. I don't know if it was a pop or a crack. Hopefully it's not a snap. He did try and get up, and he looked a little bit emotional as he sort of walked off. I don't know if he was just brushing a bit of grass off his face. But yeah, if they don't have him, even for a couple of games, then I think that is bad, because you take a player like him out of a game against West Brom where they weren't creating anything, then suddenly they didn't look like a team who were going to create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And
so
he really is that player, isn't he? You can just do something.
So Glenn, do you think the game changed last night with him going off?
Well, we lost our attacking threat because he brought Tom Fellows on, who is, I don't know what's happened to him. He's turned into Ryan Fraser. He's not taking anyone on. He's sideways and backwards is his first movement every time, be it on the left or on the right. You know, they tried him one side, switched him to the other side second half, and just nothing is happening for him at all. And I was kind of hoping that with it being West Brom, his former club and stuff, it might sort of like fire him into life a little bit, but it didn't. And you've got to think that if with Scienza going off, Edozie would have been the better substitution from the start, because with what you lose when Scienza goes off, I mean, yeah, he's our best player, obviously, but you lose the ability for someone to take people on, because Matsky's not going to do it the other side. Fellows is not doing it at the moment. Azaz is not one for running past people. So you do need someone who can do that. So if Scienza is out, then Edozie is the obvious replacement. And hopefully with a spring in his step after setting up the goal yesterday. So, but I don't think it really sort of killed the performance, because there wasn't much of a performance there anyway. He put over the best cross for the one that Stewart headed straight at the keeper. But yeah, if you lose a player like him, and he is your best player, then it is always going to have an effect. But yeah, I believe in what George was saying earlier. I think that there does seem to be a belief around the squad and the team that we can sort of overcome hurdles now and get results. But I still can't help but think it was more by luck and judgment yesterday, really, because as said, we didn't really deserve it. But yeah, we certainly don't need Leo missing for any amount of time. It's an interesting one. I know we're going to get onto Coventry, because Lampard picked him out after the game we played him last time as being sort of like one of the most dangerous players in the division. So I'm sure Coventry will be hoping that he's not there. But we've just got to hope that it's just a twinge, and he maybe by some miracle he makes the game on Saturday. But I would say it's unlikely.
Yeah, and Steve, really kind of as Glenn alluded to there was nobody sort of coming on to jumping around with a question here, but you guys had talked last week about I think we hadn't seen a pairing of Charles and Downs together very often this season. We were kind of calling for that. Again, didn't kind of work out last night. Do you think the change that he made on 37 minutes with Scienza going off changed the course of the game at all, or do you think, like Glenn said, Scienza wasn't really making the difference that he so often makes?
I mean, I think ultimately you trust someone like Scienza to kind of work it out over the course of the game. And I think sort of the longer you go on against such an inexperienced fullback, I think he would have made a difference. But injuries happen, and we've been mercifully lucky with injuries compared to a hell of a lot of teams in this division this season. So yeah, I think complaining about an injury and how it's changed the game not in our favour is perhaps a little bit churlish at this stage. But I think, yeah, I kind of think that the midfield was the problem, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Stewart got taken off at half time, but that seemed to be sort of kind of spreadsheet management again, giving him and Larin the 45 each ahead of Saturday, which I've kind of got no particular issue with. I don't think it was necessarily that Stewart was ineffective last night. It was that we didn't get the ball to him.
No.
good areas. Whereas second half, we were much more prepared to go a little bit more direct into Larin and either get him receiving the ball into his chest or into feet, or get him turning and running the channels. Whereas with Stewart, we didn't seem particularly interested in doing that. And it's like, well, he's got the ability to do both of those things. Just because he looks a little bit sort of gangling and sort of ungainly, it doesn't mean he's not effective. I mean, we've seen, obviously, he can certainly score a goal. So it's, slightly frustrating the way that we didn't really get him involved in the sort of build-up play as much. But maybe that was just the way West Brom defended, and they put the right bodies in the right places and cut the supply line off. But we found a way second half. I thought Azaz was decent enough for the most part. Like I've seen people, and same as ever, it's always the same people with the same views, sort of slagging him off and saying he's had a dreadful game. He was the only one that was getting the ball sort of on the turn and being able to kind of dribble with the ball or move the ball on at any sort of pace and look to play a creative pass. And I mean, sure, some of them didn't come off, and some of his first touches are kind of like a trampoline. But you know that he's creative, and you know that he's able to pick a pass, and he sees the pass, and seeing the pass is half of the challenge at the top level. So yeah, the sort of vitriol that he was getting from people online last night was baffling, I thought. But then I mean, I guess once people are entrenched in their views on individuals, they don't tend to change these days, do they?
And also, it was a fairly demoralising watch as well. So I think people kind of probably got in a bit of negative fug watching that, and that sort of also sets the comments going. I think one of the points you made there about sort of you're quite comfortable with Larin for Stewart for Larin. I think what's good about that now that we've got Larin is that we're not compromising the way that we set up to play in a game. We have been before. We've taken Stewart off and brought Armstrong on. You can't play that same game. But is it quite refreshing now, if you like, to have sort of those two big strikers to play up front, George? Do you think that's a tactic we'll see played out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it definitely helps, doesn't it? Because if you're cracking on with what you've been doing all game, or if you can actually go even a little bit longer, I feel like they tend to go into Larin a bit more than they do with Stewart. It's ideal, isn't it? If you've got the two, and to be honest, I don't really mind who starts out of both of them, because if you look at the last two games, it's actually the one that's come on that's got the goal. So if it doesn't work for the first sort of hour with the first one, you bring the other one on, and they are decent at making an impact. And well, it wasn't that long ago that we were lamenting how subs came on and made the team worse, if anything. So yeah, I think having the pair of them there, and they both seem quite happy. I think I would be very surprised if Ross Stewart starts at Coventry, to be honest. He very, very rarely features in 3 games in a week. If we look at the Sheffield Wednesday game, he dropped out of that one and he played probably around about the same number of minutes. Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry, 2 very different oppositions. I think the fact that Larin scored is probably enough to get him in from the start. It seemed to be enough for Stewart to go in from the start, when a lot of people perhaps expecting Larin to start there again. But I don't personally mind who starts out of the two of them.
Yeah, well, we'll come on to obviously we're going to talk about preview the Coventry game, and we'll obviously cycle through who we think might be in that starting lineup. Glenn, sort of 10 games to go, I think it is now, and we're 3 points off the playoffs. I when I hosted the show a couple of weeks ago, I kind of asked you all this, whether we were just the right play. There's a horse racing with Cheltenham on. There's a horse racing analogy, isn't there, about sort of being on the rails and sort of coming up on the rails, and maybe we are that team with the momentum. How important do you think that sort of momentum is? Even we can shrug off last night, that momentum to sort of close that gap and get to where we need to be in the playoffs. Do you think momentum is important?
Yeah, we've made it difficult for ourselves. We've given ourselves no choice but to have momentum going into the end of the season, because we got ourselves in such a mess and so many points behind. So yeah, short answer, of course it's important. I mean, if you think back 2 years ago, we were kind of muddling along in 4th place for about the last sort of 10 games of the season, weren't we? And we didn't move from there. We came 4th, and we had some ropey games, and then right at the end we had that away game at Leeds where we played well, and that gave us the momentum going into the playoffs, where we of course dealt with West Brom and Leeds and won the playoffs. So yeah, having momentum is a good thing. You just hope that we can keep it going. I mean, it's 10 games now, so I'm going to break my rule of not looking at the league table, because now we're in the stage of the season where it is important.
Yeah, for sure.
I still stand by. There's no point in looking at it when you're still in January, February, but now there is, and that brings pressure. And whilst we were losing yesterday, you could hear people saying that, or see people saying on social media that, it's the old thing. As soon as we've got a chance to close the gap or achieve something, then we put in a stinker of a performance. But so you could argue that looking at the league table will bring more pressure on us. But Tom Eckert, to be fair to him, he doesn't sound like the sort of guy who's going to get ahead of himself, looking at, well, if we win this and we win this one, then we'll be here. He will be just looking at, okay, Coventry, what will be a good result at Coventry? What can we do to hurt them? So yeah, I'm pleased that we're that is quite a big thing from last night, is to keep the unbeaten run going.
Yep.
As you said, because if you lose, it's very deflating, and then you go into that Coventry game, and if you happen to lose that one as well, then it's everything's looking a little bit miserable. As George says, suddenly you're 7 points off it, and it's not looking very clever. So yeah. So I think we said this when we played Charlton a couple of weeks back, and we probably left 2 points out there, didn't we? No team has ever achieved anything in a season without having the odd dodgy result, and there's some games that you've got to battle through and get something out of it, and that's really what last night was. And if by chance we go to Coventry and win on Saturday, then no one's going to care about the West Brom game.
It'll be very quickly forgotten. Steve, much talk of momentum. Looking at some of the comments in the chat, we've probably got some of the best form out of that sort of top 7 or 8 teams at the moment. How important do you think that's going to be for these final sort of 10 games? I
don't know how important it is. I mean, ultimately, you've got to finish the season strong, because we've, as Glenn said, we've had ground to make up, and we still have ground to make up. But I mean, looking at the last 10 in the form table, we're 4th, behind only Norwich, Millwall, and Coventry. So yeah, we're doing okay. I mean, the draws are frustrating, particularly because so many of them have been against teams that you kind of match up man to man, and you think, well, the 11 that we're putting out should be able to overcome this. But this division is not an easy division to deal with, and it's weird. We've discussed before, haven't we, that it doesn't feel as if it's a particularly high quality division this year. But teams are certainly much more organised. The set piece situation. I mean, we've been great from set pieces the last sort of couple of months, haven't we? Scoring more or less half our goals have come from set pieces. But it is one of those scenarios where they are a leveler against the weaker sides. If they're able to be better at you than set pieces, then you're in trouble. But no, look, we go into this run in good nick, compared to a lot of the sides that we're chasing. I mean, Hull obviously won at Wrexham on Tuesday, but before that they'd lost 5 of 7. So nobody's perfect in this division. Even Coventry as runaway leaders, they had that wobble a couple of months ago where it looked like the arse was falling out of them, but they've sorted themselves out. So I think every team has got apart from the obvious, has got the capability of going on a run that gets them either out of trouble or into promised land. Yeah. So yeah, I think we've just got to keep at it.
Yep, maybe we had all of our stinkers of games, real bad games in the first half of the season. A lot of people sort of in the chat. I'm looking over here at the chat. A lot of people sort of speculating, where we'd be now if Tonda had been in charge from the very beginning and all that sort of thing. You kind of have to leave that behind, right? You can't lie awake worrying about that at night. That's all done. George, just quickly before we move on to some other bits and pieces, and of course preview the I keep calling it the all important Coventry game. Can't do that. Just it's the game, right? It's Coventry. What were the player ratings like yesterday? I apologize, I didn't look at a report today to check them, but was it pretty standard 5s and 6 for everybody? Nobody really sort of stepped up, did they?
No, nobody stepped up. I think there's probably a couple of 4s in there. We did it in the car last night and I went straight to sleep afterwards, so I can't exactly remember who I gave the lowest ratings to. I think Shea Charles is one who's been mentioned. I think he's probably the worst player. He was just a bit slow, just didn't really get going. But I think a lot of the criticisms that you could give to a player like him, you could pass them around to pretty much anyone. I think Daniel Peretz for me was the best player. He didn't really have to make any massive saves, but he just
he did do his best to throw one in.
Yeah, he does. I can't quite work out if he's brilliant or if he's kind of on a good bit of run, because he has made them better. His presence at the back definitely helps. I've never seen a keeper even on corners. He's practically on the halfway line shouting at people. And he was actually getting a bit frustrated when they were playing slowly. He was shouting a couple of times to get out to Tom Fellows, to get out to Samadozi, and they were going inside instead, almost as if that was like their comfort zone, to just play it inside and to recycle it back rather than running at someone. And I do like that about him. I do like that he's really vocal and he doesn't really have to make many amazing saves. He has made a couple of good ones, and when someone goes one-on-one, I do back him to save it, and we haven't really been able to say that about Saints keepers for the last couple of seasons. So I think he's all right. And yeah, there was a couple of the subs were the better players in the player ratings. I think I'd probably give Larin and Adozi a 6. No one would have got a 7. No one had an above average game.
No. Well, I only ask you just as a little warm up to asking you, the three of you, really for your sort of player of the week, because we've of course got to sort of think about the Fulham game as well, and then last night. Would you put anybody in for last night as player of the week?
I actually thought Ryan Manning played pretty well yesterday. He was one that I thought was at least trying to pass the ball forward. He did it on. I mean, he played that ball to Scienza when Scienza got injured, which had a bloody blue and white light on it, didn't it? And an ambulance siren. That was, just like if you. That's the one thing I will criticise him for. If you play that ball to Scienza, the fullback's going to go for a man and ball. You just know they're going to do that, and don't think it was the contact that injured Scienza, but that wasn't a great ball by Manning. But I thought in the main he was the one sort of like trying to pass the ball into the forwards' feet and things like that. So I'd say he was, out of the outfield players, I'd say he was probably the best player yesterday. One I was slightly disappointed in was Flynn Downs, because I think they seem to be so obsessed with this yellow card tightrope that he's on, that it seemed to limit him a little bit yesterday, and I don't think that helps, because he, along with Peretz and Harwood-Bellis, they're really the three that kind of drive the standards throughout the rest of the team. I thought Harwood-Bellis was okay yesterday.
Yeah.
Downs struggled a bit. I thought Jack Stevens had one of his non-participating games where he was kind of there, but not really, didn't win any headers and struggled against the physicality of the West Brom sort of like front.
Well, DK was an absolute pest, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was. I mean, neither of them could win anything off of him. So it was all about kind of trying to get someone around for the second ball. But those two in midfield were just way off the pace and we're never reading it.
I think DK kind of played. He kind of peeled off to play against Stevens as well. He probably recognised him as the weaker in the air. So there was an element of that, but yeah, no, I'd go with Ryan Manning. I thought he had a decent game at Fulham, obviously, and as everyone did, and a half decent game yesterday.
A lot of support in the chat for Perez, who had a good game. I mean, that we haven't really talked about their goal. That was a bit of a flashback to sort of 4 or 5 months ago when we were sort of throwing those in with regularity from corners. It was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? We haven't really talked about that.
Well, we let in 3. We lost 3 challenges. There's 3 headers.
Mm.
One that DK won the first header, won the second header, and then Malumbi held it off. And it was like the goal we let in Sheffield Wednesday a couple of weeks ago. It was like three challenges, 3 duels to be won. We didn't win any of them, and they end up scoring from the 3rd knock. And yeah, that's really not good enough.
No. So George, who would be your pick from yesterday? We're slim pickings, but
yeah, I'll probably still go Perez. I thought he had again, even though he had that moment at Fulham where they got away with it, where he smashed it into the back of Ryan Manning and then they put it in the back of the net, whistle goes. What was it? VAR can't check it if to do with the rolling ball or something is perhaps what I've seen
so VAR can't check. I mean, that basically that offence, if you like, is not sort of reversible. And also the referee had blown his whistle before the ball got
he
in the
had
net.
To be fair, yeah.
Which was kind of handy. I mean, I do think the ball was probably still rolling.
Yeah, it was.
It was,
but it's
no
very,
doubt.
very, very tight, isn't it? Like that one.
They got away
it
with
did
them
look
big
as if it was certainly coming to a stop if it hadn't stopped already.
It's like you can't be half offside. It can't be half rolling. It's either rolling or it's not. So we'll go with that. Best decision that ref made all day, for sure. Steve, who are you putting in the frame for last night's game?
Well, I mean, I suppose you probably got to pick one of the 2 players who actually had the impact in injury time. So it's either a Dozy or Larin.
Yeah.
Larin gets his head on it. And yeah, I mean how it looped into exactly that position, sort of in off the bar, maybe touching the post as well at some point. Yeah, absolutely.
Goalkeeper has a fumble as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, the goalkeeper has a bit of a flap.
Wasn't pretty at all, was it?
That trajectory is always quite tough for keepers. I think they end up looking pretty silly with those. But yeah, I think Larin was useful second half. I thought gave us we actually used him as a focal point, which we didn't in the first for Stewart. So yeah, I'll go with Larin.
All right. Well, let's, as I say, slim pickings possibly. Right. Let's get on to the Coventry game. Let's preview that in a moment. Just want to tell you about some other bits and pieces, because I'm sure you know by now, if you've listened regularly, that this year TSP is taking on the Benali On Tour Challenge. Martin, Alfie, and our producer Alex are taking on the Lake District Summits across the final weekend of the season for the Saints Foundation, raising money for the Saints Foundation. Right. So that's a great cause. We're doing a joint fundraiser with our friends at the Daily Echo. I'll be sharing our fundraising links in the description of the podcast and on YouTube. If you'd like to sponsor the guys to take part in that, the money's already coming in, which is great, but don't let that put you off making your contribution, because we're still a way to go. So I think we've just hit over. Oh, well done. I've just seen this change. We've just hit over the £1,000 mark, £1,020 so far. That's around 45% of the goal. So come on, let's have that final push. We must have 3, 4, 5 weeks to go. Before that, maybe a little longer. So please, all the details are, as I said, on the socials and stuff like that. So if you've just got even a £5 to spare, whatever, that would be for a great cause. All right, so we've been talking about it on and off throughout the first part of this podcast. The small matter of league leaders Coventry away on Saturday lunchtime. That's a 12:30 kickoff. Of course, those with good memories will know that it was 1-1 at St Mary's in December, but a game probably more remembered for Frank Lampard's shithousery at full time and the following £22,000 scuffle that it cost us. And we were chatting today on our little WhatsApp group that actually it cost them more than it cost us, which is good because they started it, right? But from that game, there was that was sort of the standout from that game, wasn't it? It was 1-1, and I guess at the time that wasn't a bad result for us, was it? Steve, do you remember the match? Obviously,
it was frustrating because they basically played the whole of the second half with 10 men and didn't get out of their penalty area, but we didn't quite do enough. Got the equaliser fairly quickly, but despite having all the ball kind of in that sort of deep in their half. We just didn't. I mean, much like last night, actually, we didn't move the ball quickly enough and get them sort of out of position to give ourselves a sort of fighting chance, really. I think if we were to play that game again now in the same kind of circumstances, I think we would have a better idea of what we were doing. We'd have obviously Larin as an obvious target man if you wanted to just start wanging the ball into the box and seeing what happens. We've kind of got that sort of random sort of chaos factor now, don't we? Where we do have that as an option. Whereas in the past, with Adam Armstrong as your central striker, who's 5'9", it's not, you throw the ball into the box and centre back, 6 foot centre backs saying thank you very much. That's nice and easy for me. But now he's up against someone kind of similar build, then maybe we'd have been able to do something a little bit more productive from it. But at the time, it felt like a half decent point, although it was obviously at the beginning of that fairly horrible Christmas run that we had. And
Coventry were flying. To be fair, they were doing very, very well. So obviously, we'll take a good, strong contingent to Coventry. And Glenn, obviously, the villain of the piece at St Mary's was Lampard, and the way that he was behaving. It did result in that scuffle, and there were fines for the club and for Coventry as well. A bit of handbags there. Do you think that lives in the players' memory? Do you think that might kind of be the thing that they need off the back of a fairly dreary performance against West Brom? This could just be the little edge that this game needs, or does it not need one because we're playing the top of the league club?
Well, it shouldn't need one because, it's just a massive game between two clubs that, Coventry have won 6 in a row and Saints haven't lost for 11 is it now? So, 11. It's a decent game between two very informed teams, statistically. So, I think if this had been, like we played Birmingham twice in 5 weeks or whatever it was, because of the fixture computer being stupid, I think if this game had come around sort of like fairly quickly after the first one, I think there might be a little more of an edge to it. But I think enough time has passed that ultimately, we're not trying to beat Frank Lampard because he was a dickhead at the end of the game at St Mary's. We're trying to beat his team. Coventry, with their league position, they're going to get promoted. They're 9 points clear of third place. So for them, it's just a case of wanting it done as soon as possible. And a win against a team like us will be a massive sort of like step towards that. So because they'll be expecting us to take points off of teams around them as well. So it's. I don't think the Lampard thing will play massively on anyone's mind. So no, we just have to go out there. It's the 11 players on the pitch that matter. And I think more from that game we've got to take that they weren't brilliant against us. And even I know we were 1-0 down when the guy got sent off, but we were probably the better side in that game. But back then we were kind of limited with what we could do with our forward options and things like that. So we're certainly in a better place now with regards to what we've got available.
Yeah, that was before the transfer window. Was before January, wasn't it? So we've got some new players in. And George, you've already sort of explained that the press conference is a little bit different because the team and the manager aren't back at Staplewood, I think you said. So no real kind of idea yet on who's fit, who's in, and who might make that starting lineup, I'm guessing.
No, I reckon there'll probably be a couple of changes, won't there? Because of the quick turnaround with things. Like Scienza's the one who everyone will look for straight away when the team sheet comes out. I hope he's fit because, again, as we spoke about, he's the type of player, and Frank Lampard pointed out as well, as has been said, that can cause some problems. I don't think he needs to change that much, though. I think the only thing that I think definitely needs to change is that midfield too, because no matter how many times different managers have tried the Downs and Charles combination, it just doesn't work. So there's no point trying it again. Just bring Casper Yander back in, I think.
Yeah. So Yander in for Charles. Guys, Steve, what are you expecting to see as the sort of the starting lineup against a strong Coventry side? Do we go with Larin up front first, or swap those two around at half time?
I mean, frankly, you could draw lots for which of the two starts. It's probably not wholly important, really. I think the kind of attitude and the sort of drive of the team is sort of, and that starts from the back, is what's going to kind of dictate whether we're able to get anything out of this game or not. Coventry will probably look to start fast themselves, and I mean maybe that puts us in a similar situation to Fulham last week, where we'll sit and soak up your sort of territorial pressure, as long as we're not letting them create sort of gilt edged chances, then that gives us an opportunity to hit them on the break. And because we know that we've got pace in the right areas now. We demonstrated against Fulham that we could tear a Premier League defence apart on the counter attack. So no reason why we can't do the same for a Premier League in waiting defence. Although you would assume once Coventry go up, there will be 15 signings to take that squad up to something that might resemble something vaguely competitive, because in its current state it would have no chance at all. But no, I think our attitude is the key thing for Saturday. If we kind of start the game how we ended last night, then who knows? There's an opportunity there. We know that we're a good side when we're playing well, and when we're playing in that way. It's when we lose a little bit of confidence or try to protect things a little bit too much, try to play the safe option, that's when we get caught out. Ironically, the safe option is rarely the safe option, because it just invites pressure. And we saw that last night, didn't we? Where loads of times where we end up giving away silly throw-ins in our final third, because we've tried to overplay it one too many times. And I would imagine Coventry will press high in the same way that West Brom did. Their attacking options have all got pace and power. So I wouldn't expect Harwood, Bellis and Stevens to have a particularly pleasant or quiet afternoon. But they've got the capability. They've shown in the second half of this season that they're both very capable defenders as a pairing. Good communication between the two of them and from the keeper behind. So we'll see. I don't know.
I think the key when we've got the ball, we've got to play with pace. You know, when you look at what we did against Fulham, yes, we sat back, but it was all about getting the ball out wide and getting up the pitch quickly. And you saw Finn Azaz was virtually in line with the centre forward. As soon as we got the ball, we were trying to get forward. So hopefully it's a similar sort of game plan. And I know West Brom was a different game because of the way they set up, but we had no pace in our attack when we had the ball at all. There was no desire to fly forward, and you end up, as Steve said, just playing the ball around. Safe option. Let's turn and go backwards. Let's turn and go inside. And oh look, they're on top of us, and we've wafted it out for a corner. This sort of stuff. A lot of the pressure a lot of the chances that West Brom had yesterday were they were pressing. To be fair, they did that job pretty well, but we weren't brave enough to try and break the lines. We just ended up getting squashed further and further towards our own goal. And there was one where Harwood Bellis just wellied the ball out in the right back area. There was the Shea Charles corner thing where, we had the ball on halfway, and we've ended up going backwards and causing ourselves problems. So Saints are a good side when we play with some pace in our attack when we've got the ball. When we stop doing that and stop taking risks on the halfway line, basically, then we become no better than anyone else, really, and we become easy to play against. And we don't threaten the goal. So hopefully this game gives us an opportunity to get out the Coventry defence in that way, because I think the weakest part of their team is the defence. They've got a very good attack. They've scored loads more goals than everyone else in the division. So midfield's decent. Torp and Grimes, both very good players. So I think the defence is what we've got to get at, and maybe one of them can do us a favour by getting sent off again, like he did last time. But
nice early yellow or something.
Looking forward to the game.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And any sort of changes that you would make from the starting lineup, unforced ones that you would maybe make from the West Brom game, Glenn?
Only if Scienza can't play, then
yeah,
it has to be a Dozy that starts.
Yeah.
I'm not. I was disappointed with Shea Charles' performance yesterday because he had no excuse to sort of be that sort of lethargic. But I've not been impressed with Kasper Yander recently either.
No.
So there's a bit of a choice to be made there. Cam Bragg, I actually didn't think he was great when he came on yesterday either. He just lots of heavy touches
straight away, didn't he?
Got booked straight away, and just seemed to struggle a little bit. So either one, that position next to Downs is kind of up for grabs with those three. So I think it will be Yander who starts.
Um,
start Matsky again. You were crying for him to start, crying out for him
to
start.
Well,
but he didn't have a great game either.
We haven't mentioned him because he barely touched the ball yesterday. It just seemed to be the wrong sort of game for him. But if you don't start him, then you're starting Tom Fellows, aren't you? So and he's not been great either. So there are a couple of decisions to be made. I think I'd be tempted to go with Matsky and a Dozy, to be honest, as the wide players. But if it's not working, then someone's got to put 240 volts up Tom Fellows and try and get him back to the player that the player that we signed. The player that takes players on both sides and goes past them and gets crosses in. That's what we bought him for, and he's got to get back to that.
Yeah, the change has been depressingly obvious, and he just feel like there's one good game away from just turning that round, and maybe that's Coventry. Who knows? Let's do some score predictions just for fun, shall we? But let's review the scores that we had from the last game. So West Brom, the Prediction League stats, we had about 80 entries. 5 correctly got the draw right, and every one of them, actually all 5, went for the 1-1. So well done. None of you did a great job on it. So Steve, you went with a 2-0 win. Glenn, you put 1-0. I think just got them here. Alfie went for a 2-1 win, and Martin went for a 1-0 win. So not great predictions from you for that week, but I'll let you redeem yourself with some stellar score predictions, please, for Coventry. Steve, start with you.
I was kind of all set to kind of be a little bit down on us after last night, basically up until the point at which we equalised, and then suddenly we found 3 minutes of energy that was like, well, okay, well, where the hell's this been all evening? And maybe it did just need something just to kick us into gear, and that actually we're not knackered again, and it's not going to be like a month of dreary, depressing sideways and backwards football again. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an open game. If you look at the stats, we've played 19 away games already this season. It's mental. We've only got 4 aways left. And after Saturday, we'll have 6 homes and 3 away remaining to play. I mean, it's a ridiculous fixture list. But yeah, 19 away games played so far. Not a single one has had less than 2 goals.
Wow.
In it. So yeah, that's quite telling, I think. There will be goals Saturday, and there will be at least 2 of them. I am going to Coventry 1-6 on the bounce. We've looked pretty decent in most of our run, but we've not always been convincing. So I think the best we'll probably get out of this will be a score draw. It might be a high scoring draw, so I'll go 2-2.
2-2. Steve, Glenn, where are you going with this?
I've got a bit of paper here with 2-2 written on it.
Okay, you can have that.
So, yeah. No, it's boring, isn't it? No, I largely agree with what Steve said. I think it will be a decent, high-scoring game. I think Coventry are obviously the best attack in the league. Look at the amount of goals they scored. I think Haji Wright will cause us problems. He's a funny player. He sometimes looks like a world beater, and sometimes looks like he's never played football in his life before. So hopefully he has an off day, and if he has an off day, and we can keep the others quiet. They've got a sort of trio of attacking midfielders: Sakamoto, Eccles, and Mason Clark, who are, they're all chipping in. Jack Ridoni, who we allegedly tried to sign at the start of the season, he's not available. He's not playing or whatever. He must be injured. So yeah, if we can keep their attack quiet, then we are fully capable of getting something out of this game. So I will go for the default 1-1 draw. I'm relatively optimistic.
1-1. George,
I'm trying to take confidence from when they last had a frustrating 1-1 draw, which was obviously the Charlton game, and then a couple of days later they thumped QPR 5-0 and looked like a team who were trying to react to a disappointing result. Obviously, Coventry, a much harder team to play against than QPR. But if they can sort of bring that energy out, that's what Cyle Larin sort of spoke to me about after the game, that he reckons they can beat any team in the division. They showed that against Fulham, obviously in the Premier League. But they just need to be full of energy. If they don't bring that energy, then they haven't really got much of a chance against Coventry, because Coventry will score goals. And I do feel, I think before West Brom game, I would have said, oh yeah, I think Saints can get a decent result, and I still do think that, even though they were disappointing. I think this game suits them a bit more, like the Fulham game did, where they'll go and they'll try and disrupt what the home team are doing. And I do fancy them for a 2-1 win. I don't know who will get the goals, if I'm being honest, because they haven't really looked like they're going to score bags of them. But I'm going to go 2-1 win. I'm a bit confident about it.
I love that. We'll see. So a few days to wait for that. We'll go 2-1 Saints win. Feel free to put, of course, your predictions into the prediction league, or just into the chat on the YouTube feed. We're running out of time, so I'll just say, has anybody got any other business, gentlemen? Anything you want to bring up?
I've got a few, actually.
Okay, we could run over. Let's go to
first one, which is one of our fans has just been charged with hitting a ball boy with a crutch thrown at Fratton Park. So I remember that. That's just happened, and the pie man who ran on the pitch, the Pompey fan, he's also been charged as well. So
okay.
So we'll get to hear about more fines or custodial sentences or whatever in the next couple of weeks. The other thing is that obviously we've got this FA Cup game against Arsenal, which, due to marvellous fixture programming, is plonked on the bank holiday weekend, which means 2 of our games are need to be moved. Obviously, Ipswich has been moved to right at the end of the season. Wrexham at the moment is still on Monday night. So at the moment, we're going to have an FA Cup game and Wrexham right on top of it. So it's just it'd be interesting to see what happens there, because the deeply cynical in me says that this will be set up for Wrexham somehow. And I'll be interesting to see. You would have thought so. You would have. Neither team's got a game on, like the midweek of that week, so I can see that getting moved from Monday to Wednesday or something like that. But and it's just
looking to see whether they'd announce the cup game time while we've been on air. But I've just checked, and there's nothing on the website, so it's still a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, and it's just a slight concern. You can see why teams who are challenging for promotion sack off the FA Cup, basically because of this kind of issue that is caused, because however it works out, we're going to be Saturday, Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? Throughout April, and performances like last night and the first half against Leicester, the flat performances always seem to come when we've had 3 days to, since the last game. So that is a slight concern going forward. And the third thing, I swear I didn't imagine this, but after the Fulham game, was Todd Eckert talking up Ross Stewart playing for Scotland?
No, I think that's a little while. Maybe he was. I started, but he has talked about Ross Stewart wants to sort of get in the Scotland squad and get to the World Cup.
Yeah, because we do not want that in the slightest. If he gets picked after the end of the season, then fine. But we've got these international break in March. And I don't know if you'll remember, every time Stuart Armstrong went away with Scotland, he came back injured every single time. So they clearly don't have the duty of care. So I would be concerned, very much so, if Ross Stewart gets called up for Scotland for these friendlies in March, bearing in mind that he's still not playing 90 minutes and we are still managing him through every single game.
I'd be surprised if they pick him off the back of exactly that he's not really sort of play. I don't know what other strike options they've got.
He is one of the best strikers, but he feels unsuited. He especially feels unsuited to an international tournament when they're having to chuck him on for 20 minutes because he gets tired. I'd love him to play. He's a lovely bloke. I'd love him to get in the Scotland squad, especially for the World Cup. But I think that is a good point that he's not going to be able to. International football is a quick turnaround. You might have a day or two training with the national team. Saints will definitely be one of the clubs who'd have to send him with sort of a sheet of paper of he can do this, he can't do that. And they got a couple of players going away for some important internationals, and that's probably an ideal thing with these Wrexham and Ipswich games getting moved, is that they'll actually have a bit more time to recover after those international games.
Yeah. One of the Paul from New Zealand has reminded me, Shea Adams, of course, is Scotland's striking option.
Yeah,
so that's
no wonder they're looking at other options then, isn't it?
Yeah, look at other options. Thank you, Glenn. The other thing I wanted to just mention was the curse of Manager of the Month is over us at the moment, because Tonda Eckert has been nominated for Manager of the Month and Scienza for Player of the Month, I saw today. I think those are both awards that you don't ever want to win, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
Lampard will win it.
Well, no, Philippe Clement at Norwich will probably get that. I reckon.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean they've won eight of the last 10. So
you're right.
They are on the charge.
Nice to see. It would be nice for Scienza to win it, to be fair. I think Tonda Eckert wouldn't give a stuff whether he was nominated, won it, or didn't win it. He doesn't strike me as the type who would be particularly bothered by that at all. Right. I think if there's no other business, Steve, I'm looking at you. Nope. George, anything from you to wrap up?
No, don't think so.
In that case, I will do my favorite part of the show and do the big shout outs for people who support the podcast. And genuinely, it's great that people do, and we really appreciate it. And you can follow us on all the social media platforms. It's at Total Saints Pod, and do check out our TSP merch store for lovely stuff like this. That doesn't really work if you're listening to the podcast, but anyway, we're all wearing nice merch. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also on Patreon, where you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. Just visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. Each of the tiers comes with its own perks, including weekly shout outs for those patrons in the Francis Benali and Mick Shannon tiers. So here we go. Thank you to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Heron, Nicky Nicholson, Peter Montebellano, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, Red 76 Tax, Michael Blackmer, David Mansell, Nick Gardner, John Collison, Voice FM, Andrew Steele, and James Ravenscroft in the Francis Benali tier. Also to Nick Reed, to Dave Ernsberger, to Nick Hingston, to Phil Cook, Jonathan Cooper, Cole Baker, Anthony Thompson, Matt Hall, Mike Etheridge, Philip Hostrup, Mike Littlewood, James Bobin, John Bevan, Frank Thorpe, John Peacock, and Andy Pickles, who are all in our Mick Shannon tier. A huge thank you to Paul Castle Associates as well for the sponsorship of TSP this season, along with our friends at the Steamtown Brewery as well. My thanks, of course, go to Steve, to Glenn, and to George for some great panel insights. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. And off the back of that great game that we've got coming up on Saturday against Coventry, we'll be back with another podcast on Sunday night at 7 o'clock.